Have you ever heard this? Women want to be touched, but most men only think about the finish line. They think that's enough. They believe that if they stimulate certain areas, she'll be happy. But the reality, gentlemen, is completely different. A woman's brain is not just a physical organ. Psychological empathy and attention to detail matter far more than simple stimulation. That feeling of joy, of safety, of being truly seen, it comes through mindful, intentional touch. I verified this myself over more than 20 years of practice. And that's exactly why I'm asking you this question today. Do you actually know where a woman really wants to be touched first? Most men are convinced they already know the answer, but if that's true, why doesn't she react the way you want? Why does she pull away instead of leaning in? Here's the thing. Nobody has ever explained this precisely because there's no simple manual for it. Many women don't even consciously know what they want. They don't say, "Touch me here." Instead, their body sends clear signals through their posture, their eyes, their subtle gestures that most men completely miss. I'm Dr. Ava Remington, and I've spent over 20 years working as a relationship and intimacy counselor. I've worked directly with thousands of couples across the United States, and I've analyzed their experiences up close. What I've found again and again is this. Most men act on instinct, but women, especially as relationships mature, need emotional connection above everything else in order to open up physically. Today, I'm going to walk you through something simple but incredibly profound. I'm going to talk about 7 specific zones that go way beyond the physical. Based on psychology, physiology, and neuroscience, I'll explain exactly why these areas are so powerful. If you know these 7 points, starting right now, you'll experience a completely different response from the woman in your life. Use your hands with intention and she will feel it, without you having to say a single word. I need you to really pay attention here, because this knowledge is going to be useful for the rest of your life. And before we get started, if this kind of content helps you, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. I put out new videos every week for men who actually want to understand this stuff. All right, let's get into it. First, let me clear something up. I've dedicated more than 2 decades to the psychology of relationships and intimacy. As a counselor, I've worked directly with couples in cities all across America, from New York to Nashville to San Diego. And what I've learned from those thousands of sessions has given me a very clear picture of something I keep seeing over and over again. Most men mean well, they genuinely do, but the perspective of a woman is often that the touch they receive feels one-directional, so they pull back. And when a man notices that, he gets confused. I touched her. Why didn't she react? The answer is surprisingly simple. What men offer as affection often doesn't land the way they think it does. Women don't just respond to stimulation. They want to feel included. They want to know how much you're paying attention. To their body, yes, but more importantly, to their feelings. If she senses with every fiber of her being that you genuinely care about her, she will open up. The problem is that women often don't express their desires directly. They don't think, "Let me tell him exactly what I want." Instead, they send signals. And most men aren't trained to read them. A patient once told me during a session, a woman in her late 50s from Chicago, she said, "Don't just touch me. Let me feel like you actually want to reach me." There's so much in that sentence. It's not about physical contact alone. It's a psychological door that has to be opened first. So today, I'm talking about 7 areas that are so much more than just parts of the body. They are the keys to opening her heart, to making her feel respected, seen, and safe. Think of it as a language of feeling. If you touch these 7 zones with respect and genuine understanding, her reaction will be completely different than anything you've experienced before. Nobody has explained this to you this clearly until now. When a woman pulls her hand away without saying anything, it's not because she doesn't like your affection. It's because of how and where you're touching her. But if she leans into you, if she closes her eyes and exhales slowly, that's when you know you've found it. Pay close attention to what I'm about to share, because this can genuinely change your relationship. The first zone is the back of the neck, right where the hairline begins. This is a spot where unconscious tension accumulates constantly. Think about how many women carry stress in their shoulders and neck without even realizing it. When you gently run your fingertips across this area, not with pressure, just with warmth, it releases that tension. She begins to feel trust. She begins to feel connection. It's not about desire in that moment. It's about the warmth of your presence calming something deep inside her nervous system. In my work with couples here in the US, I've watched this simple gesture completely shift the energy between two people, a husband and wife who haven't really connected in months. And one quiet, gentle touch to the back of her neck changes the whole atmosphere in the room. Most men walk right past this zone. I'm telling you, don't. The second zone is the soft skin between the shoulder blades, that area right in the middle of her upper back. This area is like a shield for her. Place your hand there gently, not pressing, not grabbing, just resting, and she will feel a deep sense of security. Her mind relaxes before her body even catches up. So many women crave this kind of touch without their partners ever realizing it. It's a point of vulnerability. And when you touch it with respect, what you're saying without words is, "You're safe with me. You can trust me completely." The third zone is the hands, especially the fingers and the palm. A woman's hands are an extension of her emotions. When you hold them slowly and carefully, wrapping your fingers around hers with intention, she feels understood. It's as though you've touched her heart directly. Not just holding hands, but a slow, deliberate caress of her fingers sends a powerful emotional message. Here in America, we have this habit of just grabbing someone's hand and moving on. But let me tell you something. It's not enough to just take her hand. You have to caress it intentionally. That slight, deliberate touch that says, "I appreciate you. I notice you. You matter to me." It sounds small. It is not small. The fourth zone is the small hollow just below the jawline, right behind the ear. This area is incredibly sensitive, but it's only truly accessible when there is deep mutual trust. Touch it gently with your fingertips, not with pressure, just with warmth and care. She'll feel respected. She'll feel valued. She'll feel like you truly see her sensitivity and that you're handling it with care. I'll be honest, I found this zone works powerfully in long-term relationships, especially for couples who've been together for many years. Because culturally, we Americans are actually warm, affectionate people, but we get busy, we get distracted, and over time we stop doing the small things we used to do when we were dating. This kind of subtle, intentional touch brings all of that back. The fifth zone is the inner thigh, near the knee but well away from intimate areas. I want to be really clear about this one because a lot of men get it wrong. This isn't about rushing. Approaching this area respectfully is like a signal. Closeness without being intrusive. It creates warmth and security at the same time. The key factor here is not speed, it's rhythm, a pace that allows her to relax naturally on her own terms. Here's a mistake I see constantly in my practice. Men go directly for the intimate zones and skip everything that leads there. But after more than 20 years of working with couples, I can tell you this with absolute certainty. Women deeply appreciate it when you take your time with these areas. The journey matters, the intention matters. She is not a destination, she is a conversation. The sixth zone is the curve between the waist and the hip, what we call the lower back. This area is the center of stability in her body. When you gently place your arm around her from behind, not squeezing, not gripping, just holding, you transmit protection and warmth. The moment her lower back makes contact with your hand, emotional signals flow through her, like warmth through a cold room. I learned this from older couples who've come into my office after decades of marriage. They tell me that after all those years together, this one simple gesture, placing a hand on her lower back while standing behind her, reminds them both of why they fell in love in the first place. It's not dramatic. It doesn't require words. It just says, "I'm here. I've got you." The seventh zone, and this one surprises most people, is not where you'd expect. It's not the chest. It's the area around the navel, the lower abdomen. This is arguably the most important area in a woman's body. It's where instinct and emotion meet. Many men either skip right past this area or rush through it without understanding what it means. Place your hand there. Warm, slow, and careful, like you're handling something precious. Because you are. This signals to her that she can trust you with her body and her heart at the same time. There's actually a cultural understanding in many parts of America. particularly in communities with deep family traditions, that the belly, the core, is where a woman's deepest emotions live. Our grandmothers knew this, and they were right. If you touch these 7 zones with respect and real understanding, a woman will feel loved, not just physically, but deeply. And it's not just about pleasure. It's about the kind of trust that makes her surrender to the moment completely. The answer is in your hands. Where, why, and how you touch, that determines everything. Now maybe you're thinking, okay, but are these zones really that powerful? Does she really feel it that differently? The answer is a clear yes. A woman's body doesn't just respond to physical stimulation. Her pleasure system is tied to both physical and emotional stimuli at the same time. A simple touch can completely change the feelings that arise when she senses connection with you. A study from the University of Maryland showed that skin nerves in women are, on average, 10 times more sensitive than those in men, particularly the back of the neck, the spot behind the ear, the fingers, and the lower abdomen. These are extraordinarily sensitive. These areas trigger the release of oxytocin, the trust hormone. It doesn't just promote sexual arousal. It promotes the need for emotional closeness and safety. These 7 zones aren't just erogenous zones. They are emotional signal sensors that communicate one thing to her nervous system. This person is safe. I can open up with him. Women respond especially to slow, soft touches. Research from Stanford University showed that women are more sensitive to subtle touch and form stronger emotional connections from it, especially the area behind the ear and the lower abdomen. These show measurable changes in heart rate and brainwave activity when touched with conscious intention. What this means is that a woman opens emotionally when you find the right rhythm. It's not about technique, it's about communication. Open her heart first with a warm, genuine hand, and real intimacy will follow naturally. The real issue isn't technique, it's intention. Women can feel whether your touch is sincere. If you approach these areas with respect and genuine attention, she will open up to you instead of pulling away. Let me tell you about a man I worked with. I'll call him Robert. He was 67 years old, retired, living in the suburbs of Atlanta. After he retired, he had more time than ever, but somehow he felt more disconnected from his wife than he had in years. There were fewer conversations, less time together, even when they were in the same room. One evening, he walked into the kitchen where his wife was cooking. Without saying a word, he gently placed his hand on the back of her neck. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was just a quiet, soft touch. She stopped. She turned around slowly and looked at him. Really looked at him. For a long moment, they just stood there. And Robert told me later that in that moment, he realized how distant he'd become. Not just physically, but emotionally. He hadn't really reached for her in a long time. From that point on, he made a point of touching her shoulder when he walked by. He held her hand deliberately instead of just grabbing it. He listened when she talked. 6 months later, his wife took his hand during one of our sessions and she said, "His hands have felt so warm lately." There were tears in her eyes because after 38 years of marriage, she felt like she'd gotten her husband back. Another story. A woman I'll call Carol, 46 years old, from the Denver area. She told me that her marriage had gone cold. No fights, no drama, just distance. One afternoon, her husband reached over and gently touched the spot right behind her ear. Nothing was said. Carol told me she felt something shift in that moment, a warmth she hadn't felt in years. She realized he still saw her. He still paid attention. She felt safe again in his arms. 3 months later, she sent me a message that said, "Dr. Remington, I can't believe how one small change in the way he touches me has transformed our whole marriage." As we get older, the way we love changes. The intensity of passion that we had at 25 gives way to something richer, something that requires sensitivity, respect, and intentional touch. The warmth of your hands can turn emotional distance into daily affection. People who experience this kind of reconnection don't say, "That was exciting." They say, "I feel loved again." It's not just a touch. It's the way you express what's in your heart. So remember the 7 zones. The back of the neck, the shoulder blades, the hands and fingers, behind the ear, the inner thigh near the knee, the lower back, and the lower abdomen. These areas are not just there for stimulation. They open her heart. They let trust grow. And the most important step is not knowledge, it's action. Love has to be demonstrated to stay alive. The warmth of your fingertips is sometimes worth more than 1,000 words. Start tonight. Touch her shoulder gently. Brush your hand slowly along the back of her neck. It might feel unfamiliar at first, but sincerity is the deciding factor. Age, time, and silence can all be overcome with one simple gesture made with real intention. Women respond more strongly to genuine consideration than to stimulation. Respect her rhythm, and she'll open her arms to you without hesitation. After more than 20 years working with couples across this country, I've seen everything. I've seen marriages on the edge of divorce that were saved by gestures exactly like these. I've seen men in their 60s and 70s who thought it was too late to change. And after applying what I just shared with you, they came back and told me, "Dr. Remington, she looks at me differently now." And you know what the most beautiful part of all this is? You don't need money. You don't need to hit the gym. You don't need to be 30 years old. All you need are your hands and your heart. That's it. That's all. Let me say something that you won't find in any book, but that I've learned directly from the people who've sat across from me over 2 decades. We Americans, we're warm people at heart. We're expressive, but sometimes, as the years go by, we get sloppy. We stop doing the little things we used to do when we were first falling for someone. You remember when you used to run your fingers through her hair while you were watching TV together? When you held her hand walking through the neighborhood just because you wanted to? Those things, gentlemen. Those are the things that keep love alive. And don't come at me with, "I'm too old for that stuff." I've had men sit in my office at 72, 75 years old saying, "Doc, I don't know what happened. My wife and I just don't connect anymore." And when I teach them these 7 zones, when I show them how to touch with intention, with warmth, with that real affection that's been buried under years of routine, everything changes. Everything transforms. Because here's what women actually want. They don't want you to be perfect. They don't want you to look like some movie star. They want to feel seen. They want you to pay attention to them the way you used to listen, to reach for them like it still means something. And you can do that. Any man who truly loves his partner can do that. My channel exists for exactly this, to help you go deeper, to help you warm up your relationships and your emotional life. I genuinely hope this helps you. It is never too late to start over. It is never too late to reach for the person next to you and mean it. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you in the next video, where we're going to talk about something a lot of you have been asking me about: how to keep the passion alive after 60. You don't want to miss that one.